Ann and Kristen McQuarrie, Chicago Tribune Ed Board member, in for Amy this morning. And, all right, we got Clifford May, president and founder of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, is back. Listen, Cliff, don't make fun of Kim Jong-un's haircut. He'll jam our signal. So just stay away from the haircut, and I think we're good. We were talking about North Korea before we dropped you, and you were just suggesting that there is maximum pressure strategy that the Trump administration is pursuing with respect to North Korea, but maybe not as vigorously as it should be.
Exactly. It needs to be much more. Kim Jong-un needs to see that we have the will, we have the determination, we have the means to totally collapse his economy. If he sees that, and he also believes that we do have military options, not great military options, but we have powerful ones, then he may decide it's in his interest to sit down and negotiate seriously. Then, with that kind of pressure behind us, our diplomats, then they'll be able to speak from a position of strength. I think that's the only way to go.
And the other topic that the president touched on in the State of the Union, and again, all of it was kind of top-line stuff, but the Iran nuclear deal and what is to be done about that. Even within his own administration, there are those on his national security team that want to preserve it in some form or fashion, even though the president has called it the worst international agreement the United States has ever entered into. So the way forward with respect to a nuclear Iran or preventing one.
There's some discussion, some debate, not an entire agreement, but basically his team is pretty much on board with what he's doing. And what he's doing is he's saying, look, this is a fundamentally flawed agreement. It has sunset clauses that will allow, just a few years down the road, Iran to be a legitimate member of the nuclear club, even if it is then what it is now, the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world. This agreement doesn't allow any inspection of military sites, as if that's not a place that Iran would be doing nuclear weapons development. This agreement doesn't do anything about the continuing development of missiles that can deliver nuclear warheads to the United States. He is saying to Congress and to the Europeans, fix the agreement. Make it better. There are things we know that are wrong with it. You know that are wrong with it. See if the Iranians will fix it. If you can fix it, fine. If you can't, I will nix it. Then I will terminate it, and we will do something else. That's the path he's on. I think it's probably a smart path.
Could you weigh in on the issue with the memo and just NSA domestic surveillance in general? The Republican Party at different times has taken really strong positions on the need for innocent people to be protected from unnecessary surveillance activities, and that's at the heart of what the memo gets at. What is your position on whether or not it should be released and what it might say? Well,
this is not quite my bailiwick, but I only say this. More transparency is generally better than less, and particularly in this case, let's see what the memo says. Let's see what happened here. I think there's reason to be dubious if the Steele dossier, which may have been very influenced by the Russians, was used to get FISA warrants to look at a campaign, a presidential campaign that was ongoing. I think there's a lot we need to know, and I think we're better off knowing it than not. I think those who say, this is an attack on the FBI and law enforcement, that has a whiff of desperation to it. There may be some bad eggs, some bad apples, some bad within the FBI, and some bad things may have been done in this election. If so, we're best off knowing about it and cleaning house.
During the State of the Union, there was a number of remarkable moments. The Congressional Black Caucus not wanting to applaud historically low black unemployment, not wanting to applaud a reference to the national anthem, and I wouldn't normally point out applauding or standing, but it's so pro forma with the State of the Union. It's such a signal of what you support and what you don't support that it's hard to mistake. And in the international sphere, when Trump tackled some of these issues, the discussion of sanctions against Cuba and Venezuela, two rogue countries, dictatorships, Venezuela literally coming apart at the seams, starving its own people. And Democrats wouldn't applaud sanctions on repressive regimes like the Venezuelans or the Cubans, in addition to supporting those that are protesting the mullahs in Iran. It's sort of remarkable to see the division in terms of worldview between the two parties with respect to those countries, wasn't it?
It is, and it's part of the decision by the far left within the Democratic Party that they're not to cooperate in any way with this administration, to push out the idea that this is not a legitimate administration, and to be in what they call the resistance. It's a terrible metaphor. The resistance, those are the French who wouldn't kowtow to the Nazis when France was occupied. To use a phrase like that is bad. And I think there are plenty of Democrats who don't want to do that, but they fear the left. And so, they might have thought, I should applaud the fact of low black and Hispanic unemployment. I should applaud the fact that we're getting tough on a regime like that in Venezuela. Maybe even Cuba. Of course, President Obama reached out to Cuba, reestablished diplomatic relations, gave the Castro brothers pretty much everything they'd wanted for years, got nothing whatsoever in return except a picture of himself with Che Guevara, a Che Guevara poster behind him. I understand they don't want to applaud because that would be an insult to Obama for what he did. But it's clear that Obama's foreign policy in regard to Cuba, in regard to Iran, in regard to North Korea, in regard to the Middle East, in regard to Syria, where we have 500,000 dead and 10 times that many refugees, these were failures. People don't want to admit that on the Democratic side of the aisle, but they were. And I think that's just demonstrable.
He is Clifford May, founder and president of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Cliff, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And he joined us on turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.